Devlin, Untamed. The platform.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Moore, presenting iOS. It's Only Sport, the only true independent daily radio sports program in this country. Today, so much sport to try and cover from the last 24, 48 hours. Here, there, everywhere. Lydia Co, as you know, winning her third major golf championships. We went to St Andrews to soak up the encore atmos and actuality. Shane van Gisbergen has got his NASCAR Cup ride next year. What does it all mean? When will he start full-time racing? The big build-up to this first All Black Springbok test started in earnest today. We're going to be going on about this all week. Andy Capistanio from South Africa on the program. US Open tennis underway tomorrow morning, New Zealand time. We've got Dave Worsley live in the US. We talked Premier League. We talked a lot of Rugby League. There was a big moan Monday. All of this squeezed into a 3-hour show and condensed now into a podcast package for you. We begin it every day the same way, which is tablets in hand. I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Oh, what about that on Friday night with Shaun Johnson? Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
What a magnificent occasion Friday night at Shaun Johnson Stadium, farewelling the Warriors fan favourite. Impossible not to get caught up in the emotion of it all. Now, I'd never say the man is more important than the game or the result, but for everyone there on Friday night, being there to witness all of that, I'm sure will live longer in the memory than the actual match. Well, another loss, the Bulldogs summing up the entire season for mine. Warriors side just not good enough. It's that simple. Let's not complicate things. Huffed and puffed, got a good lead, but just not enough quality or ability or competitiveness to win that game. And that's been the case all season. So many times we've thought this team is would be, it could be, a what if only, but it just didn't happen, falling short way too often. And that's why the club sits in 14th spot, 8 from 23. Results-wise, a season as bad as it's ever been. But back to Friday night. You've got to have rocks in your heart if you didn't feel a little something when Shaun Johnson walked out there with the missus and kids, tears streaming down the face. That absolutely defines raw emotion. It's not very often in any sport or occupation do you get given the big standing O, the big fond farewell. To do it in public, live on TV, full house at the stadium, I defy anyone not to get a little overwhelmed in that situation. And fair enough too. People have a right to go all goo-goo gaga if they want, and he deserved a nice, big, happy, joy, thank you, goodbye. Sometimes in sport, it's okay for the occasion to be bigger than the actuality. This season was officially over last week. These playing for pride games are garbage games. The Warriors were never winning that one against the Bulldogs because the Dogs are just a much better team. So in the end, people had more fun Friday night, gave more of a stuff about Shaun and the other departing players than anything else. And I don't think it means anything more than that. And it's perfectly okay. Again, it doesn't excuse what's been a wretched failure of a season, but Friday night at Mount Smart was all about Shaun Johnson, and I'd never bemoan the occasion. Because in the end, what the hell is wrong with a big old, loving, tear-jerking farewell celebration?
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Well, I'll kick it off, or shall I say, tee it off, with the most important sports news story of the day involving New Zealand. Lydia Ko, a fortnight after winning gold at the Paris Olympics, the Kiwi golfer's snagged another big honour, claiming her third major title and first in over 8 years with a two-shot victory in the AIG Women's Open at the home of golf, St Andrews in Scotland. Her previous major title came in April of 2016, so it's been a long time between drinks for Lydia Co when it comes to winning majors. America's Cup sailing. Team New Zealand have won the America's Cup preliminary regatta in Barcelona, overcoming rivals Luna Rossa in the final by 34 seconds. IndyCar, Scott Dixon's failed to finish the latest IndyCar race in Portland, which all but ends his hopes of a 7th Drivers' Championship. He was an outsider in terms of getting that, but still was in contention. Crashed out on the first lap, did Dixon. Not a bad day for fellow Kiwis Marcus Armstrong and Scott McLaughlin, finishing 5th and 7th respectively. 3 races left in the season. Formula 1 McLaren driver Lando Norris has won the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort, winning by just under 23 seconds, with championship leader Max Verstappen in second. Norris sitting second in the driver's standings, 70 points behind Verstappen, so pretty tight race for the title between those two looks like to be unravelling in the second half of the season. Another NRL round is in the books. Just 2 weeks left in the regular season. The Cronulla Sharks beating the Dragons yesterday, which followed the Roosters thumping the Titans on the Gold Coast. In terms of the table, the Melbourne Storm are officially the minor premiers. They can't be caught. The Roosters up to second, Sharks up to third, Panthers down to fourth. That's the top four right now. The Bulldogs are fifth, Cowboys sixth, Sea Eagles seventh, the Dragons still eighth. But just behind them are four teams. And the Broncos, Dolphins, Knights and Raiders, they are all four of those teams 2 points behind the 8th placed Dragons with 2 weeks, as I say, left in the season. Premier League, 3 matches on this morning to round out the second weekend of action in the new season. Liverpool beating Brentford 2-0, pretty comfortable in the end at Anfield. Chelsea putting 6 past Wolves, winning 6-2 on the road. Bournemouth and Newcastle drawing 1-1. Man City are top of the table after 2 weeks. Brighton second, Arsenal third, Liverpool fourth. They are the only 4 teams who have won both their games to start the season. Goals difference seeing Man City on top of the table. Other football news, Sydney FC have pulled off a major coup, one of the best ever, by an A-League football club, signing former Juventus and Bayern Munich attacker Douglas Costa as a marquee player for the next 2 seasons. And Kiwi triathlete Hayden Wilde has finally got one over Alex Yee, winning the second Super Tri race in Chicago this morning. Yee got off to a slow start and ended up finishing way down in 8th. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
What a fortnight for Lydia Ko. A fabulous fortnight, gold medal, and then now her third major championship. Last one she won was in 2016. She won one a year before that. This is also the very day, today, 2012, that she won her first LPGA event, aged just 15 years old. 2012. 12 years later, here she is winning her third major. That was the Canadian Open. She's been at St Andrews, the old course, and clinched it with a birdie on the 72nd hole. Ross MacLeod is a professional tour coach, expert in putting. He was there across the weekend, joined us on the program today. It's probably the best year she's had since she won those majors in 2015, 2016. What a stunning performance.
Yeah, definitely. Just amazing golf, amazing. I just think her scorecards over the weekend, especially, just the lack of bogeys, because that was tough. You know, I think it was 1 bogey yesterday and 1 bogey today. So yeah, very, very deserved champion in my opinion.
How tough were conditions over the weekend?
Well, yesterday it was windy. It wasn't what I would say. You know, I've played in worse, but it was windy. It wasn't like a slight breeze. It was definitely the kind of wind that would make you think. And yeah, I mean, you could just see there was a lot of mistakes being made out there by people. I think everybody had bad patches, you know, like Nelly Corda made a double yesterday and she made a double today, didn't she? You know, and Lydia Co was just the one that didn't do that. She didn't even really make any bogeys. She was just so solid. I think that takes a lot of control of your golf ball to be able to do that.
Yeah, especially you know on a course and also those conditions, and the fact that there were so many lead changes multiple times coming down the stretch.
Yeah. I mean, today they had rain to deal with as well, didn't they? Yesterday there was a couple of light showers of rain, but not much. Yesterday was mainly wind, but today they had a bit of rain as well. And I think the wind was apparently just as strong, if not stronger today. And it was actually a different wind today as well. I heard somebody say the normal wind direction they had all week changed for today, I think. So that would have thrown it up as well. You know, they had to play in a different wind today.
How difficult is that course to play when it's like this?
So I would say I've played it twice in my life and was quite a while ago. But I wouldn't say it's the hardest golf course, but the bunkers are very penal and there's a lot of them. So you got to stay out of the bunkers. I think a lot of people had to play out sideways and things like that. And it's the kind of course, if the wind wasn't there, you saw what the men did in 2022, was it, when they were like 20 under par or whatever, won it, and that they had a great week. They had it calm and it was sunny, so it's not the hardest of all the links courses around here, but in that wind, it's a different ball game, definitely.
The way that she played winning the gold medal in Paris and the way that she played here today, at what tournament was she better, do you think?
I think that's a tough one. I would maybe lean towards this just based on the conditions, and I mean, I think the Olympics is amazing, but this has got all the best players in the world, hasn't it? It's a major. So I would probably go for this one, just based on the weather conditions, the strength of field, and the fact that it was like literally the best players that were vying for the lead, and the lead was changing. The defending champion of last year, Nelly Korda, the world number 1, and things like that. So I would probably edge it towards this one.
What is it about Lydia Ko's golf game that you like the most?
So I think it's just, she's just like, I mean, I kind of like just see her as like a machine. She just doesn't seem to do much wrong, and just all round great game. I mean, I don't think she's like as long a hitter as maybe like a Nelly Korda, so, she's giving up a bit of distance to maybe some of the biggest hitters, but just so accurate. Everything about. I'm a putting coach here in Scotland, so I look at her and she's just great putter. Just the way she goes about everything. She's just very, very. Just looks so disciplined. So yeah, I think like a lot of kids watching her could just learn so much. And she just seems like such a great person as well. I mean, she was coming off the 16th tee yesterday, and we've met her before when she's played golf in Scotland, and we've gone and we've always noticed how nice she is to children. So she hit her tee shot on the 16th yesterday. So this is on the Saturday. She hit her tee shot on 16, and we were 30 yards off the tee, and my 7-year-old son shouted, "Go Lydia!" And she stopped. She went into her golf bag, got 2 golf balls out, got a Sharpie, signed them both. I've got a daughter as well, and she gave both my kids a golf ball. This is like while she's playing in a tournament. So like we're just huge fans in this house. Anyway, but yeah, just great person on and off the course.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The platform.
Text coming in thick and fast, 5050. And just off the top of your head, the Halberg, it's going to be a hell of a hard job trying to select who is the single greatest New Zealand sports person this year. And after the Olympics, normally, I mean, according to Telf, and he used to judge these things, Olympic year, well, you just hand the gold medal to whoever won a gold medal. However, a major golf championship does change it, doesn't it? Hi, guys. Surely Lydia must be odds-on favourite now. Even considering the performance of our women at the Olympics, says one. Lydia says another. Lydia says another. She's gold, says this text. Class. I figure that AIG might be her next sponsor too. Why wouldn't they? St. Andrews blew its bejesus off. Great round, and she played magnificent, said Moose. Yeah, I mean, any time in any golf tournament, you can birdie the last hole to win. And then if you saw the pictures as well, and then she's standing around just waiting for the very final shots from those that may have been able to tie her. And she's got these big, thick earmuffs on. It would have been freezing cold out there, but at least the sun started shining. Such difficult conditions. And a couple of those shots, we're watching highlights this morning on 17 and 18, into the wind and into the rain. Absolutely magnificent. Shane van Gisbergen, remember the number 97? No longer. He will be racing 88 next year in his first year racing full-time NASCAR Cup. So, who's he racing for? What does it all mean? When is he going to actually be on track? What are his chances next year? All of these questions answered by Nate Ryan from NBC, also hosts a NASCAR podcast, and he's all over it for us, SVG. The news that Shane van Gisbergen was waiting to hear, he's got a ride next year. Tell us all about it, mate.
Yeah, it's great news for SVG, Martin. And, you know, as you mentioned, we've been talking about this really since that win at Chicago in 2023. And really, it was only a matter of time after SVG really excelled this year in the Xfinity Series, which is the slot right below the Cup Series, NASCAR's premier circuit, where SVG will be racing next year. And he'll be teamed with Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain, 2 winners in the Cup Series, and he's going to be racing for Trackhouse, which is really one of the up-and-coming teams in NASCAR. If you wanted to be with a really trendy, hot team right now in NASCAR, this would be the team to be with.
Okay, so who else did they have in the stable?
Well, Daniel Suarez is a former Xfinity Series champion. That's the series that Shane van Gisbergen is racing in this year. So he's accomplished. He's also a 2-time Cup winner. And then his other teammate next year, SVG's other teammate, will be Ross Chastain, who made the championship round in NASCAR a couple of years ago, and also is a multi-time winner in the Cup Series. So he's going to be teamed with 2 winners. The one caveat here I will mention, Martin, is that this has been a little bit of a down year for Trackhouse. Right now, they only have Suarez in the playoffs. He won in Atlanta earlier this year, but that's been Trackhouse's only win in the Cup Series this year. So SVG will be entering this team next year when they're in a little bit of a slump in 2024. But again, if you're talking about like a team that's really been on the rise, this is a relatively new team in NASCAR. They've only been around since 2021, but they've come on the scene and won a lot of races already. Despite the blip in performance this year, I think SVG is going to be really well positioned when he comes in the Cup Series next year.
You just explained a bit more of that to us, Nate. Just how has he been racing? What have people been saying and seeing of him?
Well, I think if you look at the numbers, Martin, like it's tempting to just say, he's been a bit of a disappointment, because in the Xfinity Series, he's had a decent season in terms of wins. I mean, he's got 3 wins this year in the Xfinity Series, but yet he's only got 6 top 10s in more than 20 races. So I think the temptation is to say, well, why doesn't he have more top 10 finishes? And the answer is, he's racing mostly still on ovals in the Xfinity Series. When he races road courses, which, as you guys know so well, he's the king of road and street courses from the Supercar Series. When he's been on those circuits, he's a contender every week. When he raced Chicago in the Cup Series a couple weeks ago, trying to defend his victory there, he would have won that race if he hadn't been taken out. So he's an absolute ace at street and road courses, but he's still learning to race on the ovals. But all that being said, he's shown enough promise, despite having no wins yet on ovals and no real strong races where it looks like he's going to win. He's shown enough promise for Justin Marks, who's the team owner of Trackhouse, to say that he believes that Shane van Gisbergen can win in the Cup Series, will win often, and will contend for championships. He's seen enough, despite the results not being there yet for SVG. So I think huge positive, and this is a team that really, really loves SVG and really believes in them.
Nate Ryan is with us, NBC Sports, and he also hosts the NASCAR on NBC podcast. What does he have to improve upon? So, what I'm looking to, obviously, okay, so say, for him to win a Cup race next year, to him to win an oval Cup race next year?
He's going to need to just learn the nuances of racing on an oval, Martin, and it's just going to take experience. It just takes laps. SVG was asked that when he was introduced at Daytona last night as the Trackhouse Cup Series third driver for 2025, and they asked him, what is the hardest part about this? And SVG said plainly, it's turning left. And it might sound kind of crazy to say, because obviously when he raced in supercars, he's turning left, he's turning right, he's going up, he's going down, elevation changes, shifting, braking. On an oval, all you're doing is you're turning left 4 times every lap. And it seems really, really simple. But the difference is when he's running those street and road courses, whether it be in supercars or in NASCAR, he's following one line essentially around the racetrack. On an oval, you're constantly changing lines. Even though you're turning left 4 times a lap, the way you enter the corner 4 times, it can be radically different on lap 1 versus lap 15 or lap 150. And there's these races go so long, and SVG's talked about this as well, that he's got to learn how to kind of be adaptable throughout the course of a 3.5-hour race, which all of these things are completely new to him and completely foreign to him in terms of running ovals and running races on ovals at these distances. And a lot can happen in the course of a race like that. And so I just think he just needs experience. He just needs laps. But again, he's shown enough so far to convince Trackhouse, which again is one of the up and coming teams in NASCAR, to say, hey, we believe in this guy. He won the Chicago street race for us last year in his debut. We believe there's enough promise in this guy's skill set that we're going to bank on him becoming a star in NASCAR's Elite Series.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly a minute or so on each. And when we get reminded, we move on quickly to the next topic. Well, Lydia Ko or Lisa Carrington, you can decide, Lachlan. Who would you vote for the Halbergs? Shaun Johnson's farewell. Did you dive in the deep end of this? The emotion of it? In the end, was it more important than the match itself? Speaking of things, League, in that particular match, the shoulder charge on RTS. And it's going to have ramifications, you would feel, from here to the end of the season, including perhaps that guy who was in the bunker, missing a round or two because of the balls up that was. Hayden Wilde won in Chicago, finally beats Yee in the Super Triathlon race. Have we got a proper F1 championship race? And is the McLaren now faster than the Red Bull? Will St. George get pipped at the post for the 8th spot? We can talk Premier League if we get a little bit of time as well. But let's kick it off with Lydia Ko versus Lisa Carrington. Again, it's just one of those silly sporting debates, isn't it? There is no winner really here, but a lot of text messages in already, and they're all saying Lydia. Why is that? A golf major more important than a gold medal? Or is it because Lisa Carrington has just won it so many times? I think Lydia Ko's won it a couple of times, hasn't she?
I'll actually double check that.
I'm pretty sure she would have won it after she won the majors back in 15 and 16, you would have thought.
Yeah, I know that Lisa Carrington has won a ton of Supreme Awards. And not just the Female Athlete of the Year Awards, but the Supremes. I don't know. It's up for... It depends who's writing the script, who's setting the standard. You know, there's people who will value a golf major more than an Olympic gold medal, or vice versa. Bridget Telford would be an amusing one because he is someone who would place more importance on an Olympic gold medal, but he loves his golf.
There you go.
So, I don't know. My first thought would be Lisa Carrington because she won three
gold medals?
3 golds.
3 golds? And now she's on 8? And now she's as many as Usain Bolt, and she's just one away from being the second most decorated Olympian ever in the history of the world.
18 people to have that number of golds ever. She has done it at 4 successive Olympic Games, and there's a good chance that she'll be maybe getting at least a medal of some colour, probably in LA. Could well be another gold. So from that perspective, it's not as if we ignore Lydia Ko, but it's just there's something so incredible that took place a couple of weeks ago by one of our athletes. At the same time, Lydia Ko won her 3rd golf major. She's one of, I was looking this up before, one of 29 golfers ever in women's golf. And of course, women's golf has this strange sort of era thing where someone's regarded as the greatest player. You know, if your name slips my mind, you brought her up with Shaun this morning, but there's other people with more golf majors. But Lydia Ko's, you know, the only Kiwi who's even comes close to such a stratosphere that other female golfers have ever achieved. And she's added to that resume this year. And she's still only 27.
That's the crazy bit, isn't it? And again, you know, and we're going to celebrate this in about 50 minutes or so. It just so happened today was the day that she won her first LPGA event back in 2012 as a 15-year-old.
Yeah, in 2013, Lydia Ko got the Supreme Award. That probably would have been because of her LPGA win. Carrington's got the Supreme Award once, twice, 3 times. There's not a right or wrong answer, to be honest. And even if Hamish Kerr, if we're talking the Supreme Award, got that, there's not a right or wrong answer there either.
He could easily get it and would thoroughly deserve it if that's the case. Will St. George get pipped at the post for the 8th spot? It's forget the Warriors. I'm over the Warriors. I'm over the Warriors season. I can't be any more disappointed in the club with the performance this year on field. I will talk about Shaun Johnson extensively with Tony Kemp after 3 o'clock and all of that. And as I said at the start of the show, I loved all the emotion of it. And at the time, I kind of just thought, we were never beating the Bulldogs anyway, so I just kind of dove into the celebration and actually really enjoyed it. Let's talk about those that are in contention, though. St. George, 28 points. Broncos, Dolphins, Knights and Raiders.
Sorry. Who was that first one that you brought up after St. George?
Your Broncos, the
Say that
Dolphins,
again.
the Knights, the Raiders are all on 26 points.
So
Now, the thing with St. George is their points differential is so bad that if any of these four teams end up with the same points as them, their for and against is just, it's minus 120. They can't sustain and maintain that 8th spot. So it comes down to who each team is playing. We'll get more into this a little later on after 3 o'clock, Lachlan, but right now, Kevin Walters, your man, K-Dub.
Do you think, Kev, I mean, if you make the finals, do you think you can mount?
There's no if. No if here. We're going to make the finals.
You're making the finals. He's already
cleared.
So you've got the Dolphins next and then home the Storm. Now you can probably actually bank that Storm game because Bellamy's going to rest all his players. But whoever wins out of the Broncos and the Dolphins goes into that last round still with a chance. This is great. The next two rounds of the NRL are just superb. There's so much going on at both ends of the table, middle of the table and the bottom of the table.
Yeah, well, I mean, I watched that game on Friday and we were down 16-0 after 12 minutes. I turned it off.
Yeah, that's what a fan does.
Great.
That's it. It's over. The bloody Eels, mate. Use us old Eels. That's our season.
And then I checked the score when I went to bed, which was about half an hour after the game finished. Like, oh, geez, we actually won. I would think for us to isolate my own team for a second, beating the Dolphins is massively achievable. We haven't lost a game to the Dolphins in their short existence. So this would be 4-0 over them. The Storm game terrifies me. The Broncos don't beat the Storm.
Ever.
Now, there's a lot of teams who don't beat the Storm. We really don't beat the Storm. Now, at Suncorp Stadium, apart from the finals game last year, so the fact that we won that game in the finals against them at Suncorp kind of makes the stat not that impressive, or the opposite of that. We've lost every single home game to the Melbourne Storm since 2009. So we beat them in 2009, and then from 2010 right up until now, we've never beaten them at Suncorp in the regular season, and the last time we beat them in the regular season full stop was in 2017. We never beat them, but we did beat them last year in the finals. Then again, Melbourne will be rotating their team, as Joel Gould said there, for the final game of the season. So considering we'll probably have a couple of players back as well from injury, because we're actually missing quite a few key. Ezra Mann, Payne Haas, Reece Walsh are all out at the moment. I don't want to believe. It does involve the Dragons losing at least one more game. And they have, who do they have this weekend? They've got a very easy game this weekend. It's Parramatta. They've got Parramatta this weekend, and then they finish against, I can't remember who they finish against. But anyway, I would still look at someone like St. George and lean towards them to still get there because they have the edge over the other teams based on points at the moment.
Okay. Who's going to get the wooden spoon? Eels or Tigers? Eels? Eels? Yep. But again, because their points difference is so much better that even if they lose this weekend to St. George and the Tigers get the bye and go ahead of them by 2 points, if they beat the Tigers in that last game, Tigers would get the wooden spoon simply because if they tie on points, Hayden Wild won in Chicago. That's brilliant. I bet he could turn the clock back 2 weeks on that, by the way. Have we got a proper F1 championship now? Is the McLaren quicker? It seems quicker right now, doesn't it, than that Red Bull car? He scooted away today, Lando Norris, and he won by 18 seconds.
Yeah, and he's got... You look at the at least the pole positions, Max Verstappen got the first 7 of the season. And since then, he's had 1, and Lando Norris has had 3. So at least since that midway point of the first half of the year, if that makes sense, something changed. The McLaren car picked up in its pace and the Red Bull car did the opposite. So I haven't been watching it as closely as I typically do with Formula One, but it appears that...
Well, now we've got a good reason though, haven't we?
Well, we've got a good reason, yes. At the same time, 70 points is the difference.
Okay, so yeah, right.
So Max Verstappen hasn't won a race in 5 Grand Prix. And in that stretch, you've had both McLaren cars win a race and you've had Lewis Hamilton win 2. You've had Mercedes and McLaren, not so much Mercedes over this weekend, but McLaren and Mercedes and Ferrari to an extent look quicker and much more competitive. But that gap is still 70 points, which is big. So as much as it's more exciting and there's more reason to watch races, it'd take a lot to dethrone Verstappen, I still think.
Shaun Johnson's farewell. Come on. Tell me that you didn't tear up at some stage during that.
I parked up and munched on a curry when I was watching the game, and I thought it was nice. I think the Warriors did a really good thing for him.
That's a lovely way of putting it, because it was really nice, wasn't it?
And
not just him, but also there was Jazz and there was AFB. I don't think AFB got the roar that.
No, Jazz definitely got a bigger one, and then Shaun got a huge one.
Yeah.
I get that he's been with the club longer and he's meant more to them. I just think they gave him a bit too much more attention than Jazz, for example. Like they had a whole different kind of song playing. They had different graphics around the stadium. Obviously, they renamed the stadium Shaun Johnson Stadium for one match. It would have been nice if they hadn't have done so much and let the fans, by their noise or their actions in the game, decide who gets more attention when we call out. And for his last game, Mount Smart Stadium for the Warriors, if that makes sense, if what I'm saying makes sense. So I didn't really like that. Then again, it was nice what they did. It was not nice when Shaun Johnson dropped the ball in that first set. I felt so bad.
Well, he couldn't really see at that stage, could he? He had waterworks running down his face. But, because the season is so stuffed, there's nothing on it. I kind of got into it a bit more than what I thought I would, actually, because I thought I was going to sit there and watch it and go, oh, yeah, sure, but what about winning the game? And in the end, it's kind of like, well, they were never winning the game anyway, were they?
Well, no,
they were actually bloody competitive up until that Crichton shoulder.
They could have. And they were the better side of the first sort of 20 minutes, half an hour or so, until the floodgates really opened. It reminded me a lot of the very first game after the first game back in New Zealand when they played the Tigers a couple of years ago, and the atmosphere was incredible. And the Warriors looked like a bloody premiership contender for the first 10 minutes and raced out to a huge lead, and they did nothing for the last 60 minutes of the game. Whereas this one was a bit similar, where it was like the occasion was so huge that it buoyed the team, but when it got down to the nitty-gritty of the contest, particularly in trying conditions, they didn't have the spine to be able to be competitive.
2 out of the last 10, people. And for what you've already seen quickly, 2 games in, because we're going to talk to Tom Rennie in a second about this, 2 games into a 38-game Premier League season. Are Man City unstoppable even at this early stage?
No.
No?
They're not unstoppable.
Okay,
no.
all right. Liverpool and Arsenal, both with the same record, both have won 2 games, and so you got to add that to it. But right now, after watching the highlights yesterday of Haaland scoring another hat-trick, and they just stroll it. When they win, they just seem to stroll it.
Well, I mean, Ipswich open the scoring, and then as soon as they do, City then score 3.
Well, within a minute.
By the 20-minute mark, it's 3-1.
It's like when they want to score, they can just stroll down and they score, and then they score again, and then they score again.
Yeah. Actually, I changed my answer. They are unstoppable.
They are?
Yeah. Well, I have no faith in Arsenal dethroning them, and as much as I'll do whatever I can to promote my Liverpool as a title contender, we're not, because it's the first year post-Klopp. So, no, it's City. Absolutely.
Rugby League, mate. Just a couple of rounds left in the NRL. What a brilliant competition this is. So close, so many different parts of the table. Melbourne still clinched it, we all know that, but then you got a real logjam gunning for that second spot. And then as far as the top 8 goes, with St. George looking nervously over the shoulder, because there's 4 teams tucked in behind them, just a win away. And then a grand final like wooden spoon shootout, perfectly timed for the final day, and that's between the Eels and the Tigers. Tony Kemp, as always, the Rugby League out on a Monday, covering the NRL. Let's kick it off with the Warriors then. Shaun Johnson Stadium on a Friday night. Man, you'd have to have rocks in your heart not to feel a little tickle, a little tear then, wouldn't you, seeing him and the tears streaming down his face?
Oh, look, I think it's a fantastic way to send somebody off, Marty. The advent of having a social media platform and television with all the cameras around the grounds that can capture moments like those, they do really play on the heartstrings of the public, and great for your marketing team, and a wonderful way to look at a player's career that has been long, enjoyable, and really at the I guess the final hurdle, a chance to go out there and show some emotion. So to run out in front of your home crowd on that occasion with your wife and your 2 kids, and allow the emotions to flow. I think that's a fantastic advert for the game.
Tony Kemp is with us, former coach of the Warriors, a very proud Kiwi as well, and played a professional league in both hemispheres. Look, I don't want to dwell on this because we do this, every week, and It feels like shooting fish in a bucket almost now. 8 wins out of 23. I mean, it says everything, doesn't it? The season has been an absolute shocker results-wise, and you can come up with all kinds of excuses and all kinds of reasons, but that's all they ever are, because ultimately now we pivot and tension turns towards those teams that actually are performing, are playing, and do have something to play for. So, I mean, what else do we need to say? Is there any more we can rake over with this Warriors outfit this year?
Well, no, you can't, because they've got to go to Cronulla and they've got to try and finish on a high. And Cronulla are flying at the moment, the way they're playing, trying to secure a top 4 spot. It's a pretty hard place to go to, the Shire, on the coast there, and get that win. So, they finished the season on a bye, and you'd hope to think, Marty, that an in-depth review of the season is going to happen. And there are going to be some answers of what went wrong. And for me, that's what you're really looking at now is what went wrong. And I think on the back of a 2023 season with so much promise, and everyone in New Zealand hoping that the Warriors, or expecting the Warriors to make the top 4 at least, it has been nothing short of a disaster on the football field. We can't say that off the football field, because they've filled up stadiums at home for the rest of the year, and the crossover crowd and the people that are coming to watch the Warriors have been plentiful. The results have not been, I guess, the desired results that people are really expecting. So what went wrong, Marty? What went wrong? Those are the questions you need to ask. And for me, I think, there was a conversation around Roger Tuivasa-Sheck that should have been had a hell of a lot earlier in the season around whether or not he could make it as a centre. And they continued to crack on with it, even though it wasn't working. And the other thing was, of course, the game sped up this year. It's got a little bit quicker, and why a player like Jerome Hughes is probably going to pick up the Daily M. And you saw that again last night with the way he goes over the ad line. We had a halfback that was going sideways, and he wasn't taking the ad line on. And of course, everyone around him, it helps defence lines adjust, and everyone else around him get pretty well picked off on the offence side of things. So those are just a couple of points that I've sort of seen what went wrong with the side. But hopefully the review that's coming up will identify that, because what that identifies is, well, who's the halfback that's going to take us over the headline? And Tamati Martin showed a little bit of that when he was in the side. But is that the halfback to get us to the grand final? And the other part is, does Roger Tuivasa-Sheck stay and play centre again next year? Because if you look at the good sides, Marty, and this is an old model, the good sides will have a big left-back edge player that's normally devastating. They'll have at least one marquee centre. They'll have a good 5'8" or good halfback, and then they have a really good lock and hooker. Yeah, and if you look at Melbourne, Penrith, and I'll go throw Canterbury in there at the moment, they've got those. When we're looking at players, we've had no back rower that really stood out. They jump in and out of the middle and the edge. Our hookers have been average this year. We haven't been settled on a halfback. We haven't got a marquee centre, even though Roger is a marquee player. And I think until we can address those problems, we're never ever going to seriously contend to win a competition.
Looking at the top of the table, Melbourne Storm clinched that minor premiership over the weekend. 3 teams now battling, though, for second: Roosters, Sharks, Panthers. I'm sick and tired of hearing people say, the Sharks are a fraudulent side. They were excellent yesterday, beating a St. George side, which was desperate for a win themselves. But 3 on 36. How does it end, mate? Who actually gets that coveted second spot?
Well, that's a tough one, isn't it? Look, I think Penrith's loss on the weekend is really opening up that door for second spot. You finish in the top 4, Marty, you get a life. I think the top 4 possibly is settled. I think the real question comes down to is who finishes in that 8th spot, which will come down to the final game of the season by the looks of it. And that's where teams are looking to play each other to try and get through to the following week before they reach, the 2 teams that, preferably that top 4 is going to go through, and then you get up against either the Cronullers or the Sydney City Roosters to try and make it through to play those top 2 teams. And I think there may be a little bit of a change in the top 4, but I'm not really worried that much about it. It's really, can Brisbane make it through, which Lockie wants to hear, in that last round. And I've got to say, with the way that Bellamy sets the sides up for the final, I reckon they go to Melbourne, Brisbane, if they can get this win this week, and they go to Melbourne, they play a second-rate side, and they sneak in on the back of Craig Bellamy resting all his players.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
We need to talk.
It's your favourite game.
We need to talk.
We're going to play Glass Half Full.
Next!
I'm going to give you a whole lot of different scenarios of the NRL, and we'll ride this out until Leah gets here at 4 o'clock. Glass half full, glass half empty. Melbourne Storm win the lot.
Next!
Glass half full.
Has to be, doesn't it? They're the best team in the competition, there is no question, because when you look at the points table, they've won 18 games.
Now,
It's 3 more than anyone else
5
with all those injuries.
of the last, I know at the very least it's worse than this, but 5 of the last 11 years, this doesn't include this year, of course, the minor premier has won the premiership.
So that's almost 50%.
Yeah, now, but I know it's worse than that because I know, so that goes back to 2013, right? So I know in 2012, the minor premiers, the Dogs, didn't win the premiership. 2011, the Storm didn't win the premiership. 2010, the Dragons, they did. But 09, the Storm weren't the minor premiers, did win the premiership. 08, Manly weren't minor premiers, did win the premiership. So it happens a lot less than you'd realise, and the Storm are the best at it. They've got so many of them, but they only have 2 or 3 premierships to show for it. So in years when they actually get the minor premiership, they don't often win it in Melbourne.
Glass half full, glass half empty. St George end up making it.
I'm going to say glass half full, it's like 51% full. Purely because they actually have a manageable run home and they are 2 points ahead of the chasing pack and they're currently in a final spot.
Yeah? So, I mean, you always look in these situations.
Like Brisbane have a harder run home. Brisbane have the Dolphins in Melbourne, for example.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about those two teams. But just looking at the Dragons 11 and 11, and their biggest problem all year is they did what Man United did last year in the Premier League. They win one, they lose one, they lose one, they win one. But they are in 8th spot. Is it more difficult to lose that 8th spot than to gain that 8th spot with 2 games to go?
Well, yeah, because you've got to make up ground.
That's exactly right.
Because they have total control of their destiny. The other teams don't.
Their games are away the Eels and home the Raiders.
So you're praying that Parramatta...
Yeah, do something.
Do what they did to my Broncos last week, but do that for 80 minutes, not 12.
You know, the problem that the Eels have had over recent weeks is that they get off to a flying start. They score a lot of points early. They were 16-0 up against you blokes, right?
Yeah.
Against the Roosters, I think they had a good start. I think they were up 12-0 in that game or 10-0 in that game.
Well, they did it to Penrith.
Yeah, it's Penrith, that's right.
They controlled the game and somehow the Panthers stole it.
All right.
Next!
The Sharks stay top 4. Glass half full, glass half empty.
Glass half full. Well, who do they have in their final 2 games?
Home Warriors, away Manly. So they're going to win one of those.
So they're going to win this coming weekend by about 40 points, and then they're away Manly, who are looking a little scratchy after that loss to the Tigers. So that absolutely will be a tricky game for the Seagulls, and less of a tall task than I would have thought for Cronulla. So they'll probably go 2-0 to finish the year, which for example, Penrith probably won't. They have 2 very easy games. I mean, the Roosters could fall down to 4th. The Roosters could drop a game to the Raiders this weekend. And then they have the Bunnies last, which should be a win. But no, the Sharks absolutely will stay. Sharks aren't the one I'm worried about.
Bloody good yesterday, mate.
Sharks
they played a St George side that I thought had more to play for than them. That St George side, if they'd won, would have actually put the full fend on the rest of the pack, right? They would have had a 4-point lead with 2 to go.
Well, they'd have to lose their last 2 and the others all would have to win their last 2.
That's right. And the Sharks turn around, and especially in the second half, in the latter stage of that game, 38-10.
Next!
Are the Roosters going to stay in 2nd spot and get that key home semi-final/final glass half full, glass half empty?
So they have the Raiders at home.
Yep.
And then they have the Bunnies, which is classed as an away game, even though they're in the same city.
I mean, the Sydney home and away games, look, if you're playing at Campbelltown or you're playing at Leichhardt or if you're playing at...
Well, if you like the Dragons and you've got to play away to Manly, sure, okay.
But if you're playing at Belmore or you're playing at... what's the Manly one? Brookvale. If you're playing at those grounds, those old traditional grounds, there's your home advantage. But when you're playing at the SFS or whatever it is, or
when you're playing at ANZ Stadium Australia,
I don't believe there's. And also because I'm not so sure that there's a huge home advantage there. The Roosters at the moment are on a 4-match winning streak.
They'll win the next 2, so because of that, they won't lose second spot. The only way, the Raiders could just throw a real spatter in the works and do what they did to Penrith and do that to the Roosters.
4-match winning streak. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 4. Same as Cronulla have won 4.
I can't see them losing either game, which means that they won't lose second spot. No.
And they'll lose, and they've got a massive points differential, 269, way ahead of everyone else.
Next!
Football. Here we go. The Premier League, Tom Rennie. As always, on a Monday, Man City striding away at the top of the table after another Haaland hat-trick. Liverpool, Arsenal, also unbeaten after a couple of games. Only a couple of games played, but you can already see patterns emerging, both the top and bottom of the table. Major talking points with Tom Rennie. The standout result from the weekend, my friend, would have to be Chelsea winning 6-2 at Wolves this morning. What a stunner that was.
Yeah, I watched the game and I still don't quite know what I saw, if I'm honest, because I thought it was a very even game in a lot of ways. I don't think Chelsea was 6 goals better than Wolverhampton Wanderers. But, the thing with Chelsea and what's amazing about Chelsea and what's been so fascinating about Chelsea is that with all the ridiculousness of the 500 transfers and the players not having room in the dressing room to get changed because they bought too many people and the manager not knowing his best team and all the sort of nonsense that's going on, they've actually got some really good footballers. And if they just had 25 of them, we might all be talking about what a good squad Chelsea have put together. The trouble is, the owners then put another 15 players on top of that, giving the manager a headache that he doesn't want, the players a stress they don't really need. But when you've got someone as good as Cole Palmer, when you've got someone who can have a great day like Noni Madueke, who, side note, said recently Wolverhampton was an S-hole, and then goes there and scores a hat-trick in Wolverhampton. That's very funny. So, these guys can do it, and they showed they could do it. Would I be confident next week's going to be as good as this? Probably not, but they do have those individual players with individual qualities and flair, which are going to make it fun. But still, the problems in the macro of what's happening at Chelsea remain. Best thing that can happen to them is the transfer window closes and the owners just go on holiday for a couple of months.
A couple of other results caught my eye. Arsenal winning at Aston Villa. I watched the highlights of that game, and Ollie Watkins missing a couple of sitters for Villa, but it's a great win for Arsenal. That, and then you look at Man City and a hat-trick for Haaland. And his scoring record, Tom, is just extraordinary, isn't it? 36 in his first campaign, 27 last year. And that was meant to be a kind of an average year for him. He's already close to 100 Man City goals already. This guy looks capable of breaking every single record that exists in the Premier League.
Yeah, Erling Haaland is a legitimate sporting phenomenon. His numbers are incredible. His performances are incredible. His types of goals are incredible. To have scored, 94 in 101 games? That's insane. Insane numbers. And look, there is a constant conversation about, but what about doing it in the big games? He's in his early 20s. This man is going to, unless he has a terrible injury at some point, have so many big games coming up in his career. And when City face Real Madrid this season, when City face Arsenal in a couple of weeks' time, would I bet on him to score? I absolutely would. So I don't delegitimise it by the fact he done it against Ipswich this weekend, as certainly your online people would like to do, your online troll types. But this weekend, against Ipswich Town, Ipswich were unbelievably naive in the opening 20-25 minutes. Kieran McKenna has come up, and then we saw elements of it last week against Liverpool. They're going to try and play their way to safety, and potentially they might do it. They may well do it because there's a glut of teams like Everton who are so bad, there is a possibility one of the promoted teams might make it. I don't think so, but Everton are so bad, it opens up that possibility. And playing that way next week in a winnable game might be a good idea. But at 1-0 up against Man City, maybe try and shut up shop. They give a penalty away in 3 minutes, and then a goalkeeper in Muric, who was in goal for Burnley last season and kept getting caught on the ball, He was useless and gave 2 goals away to Erling Haaland. So Ipswich shot themselves in the foot, but Erling Haaland stormed his way through it. And in terms of Arsenal, Sorry, go on.
No, keep going, yeah.
Oh, it's in terms of Arsenal. I worked on that game on Saturday, and last year Arsenal were the better team at Villa Park, and Villa won it by 1-0. This year, I would say Villa were arguably better in terms of Morgan Rogers was fantastic, driving through midfield, and he was like pushing Declan Rice and Thomas Partey off him like they were school children trying to stop their dad from leaving in the morning, right? He was just, get off me, I've got to get to work. It was incredible. Ollie Watkins should have scored the first one. That was the real big chance. The second one on the rebound, he should have put it in, but the goalkeeper makes a good stop. And to win that game, it was incredibly impressive. Arsenal were not at their best, but in Saliba, in Gabriel, they've got 2 of the best centre-halves in the league. In Partey, Odegaard and Rice, a really solid trio. I still say they need a striker to score the big goals in the big games if they're going to get the 93 points required to beat Man City. But that was an incredibly, incredibly impressive victory against the team who did the double over them last season, and that basically costed the title. So it was a huge win.
Tom Rennie from talkSPORT. Well, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, 3 of the top 4, and we suggested this at the start of the season that they probably would. They're the top 3 from last year. Liverpool haven't conceded a goal yet. They look pretty comfortable.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what I liked about Liverpool today was they scored a classic counter-attack for, I think, the first goal, which, they've been doing that for a long, long time, Liverpool. This squad is still the Jurgen Klopp squad, and when they win the ball in their own penalty area, they can thrust their way forward and score. But to be fair, Ipswich away, Brentford at home, it's not exactly trial by fire that Liverpool have had at the start of the season compared to Ipswich, who have had Liverpool and Man City in their opening 2 games. So, it's we judge them by who they've played, and of course they've won those games, but tougher tests to come. The one thing I did like about Liverpool, and you'll probably enjoy this as well, being a Man United man, is that the Klopp shtick got old. It got old for Jurgen Klopp, never mind like us outsiders who don't support Liverpool. And the whole fist pumping to the crowd and all that sort of stuff, it was good for a while. And then it became a bit like, oh, he's still doing this. And then it became like, but we're not Germany. This is not what we do. And what I liked about Arne Slot today was they won the game. He shook the manager's hand. He picked up his coat and he was like, right, see you later. Because he's not a showman in that way. And maybe the Klopp sideshow was what we were all too fascinated in. And it might be a time for the players once again to be the stars at Liverpool as they were always supposed to be. It's a players' game in the end. And we've had an era for years now where it feels like a coach's game. And there was something about that I liked. He just said, like, they did it, not me. I'll see you later. That was good, I thought.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
You better believe it!
The Platform.